Inviting beaches, paradise for sportsmen, rendezvous for romance under sunny skies. This is the lure of the West along the golden shores of California. Flight time at a busy airport as the big plane rolls slowly and gracefully into loading position.
Announcing Ambassador Flight 93 for Los Angeles. Now boarding at Concourse Gate number 8. All aboard Flight 93, please.
When the trim, smiling hostess appears in the doorway, you know everything is shipshape on board. First flight or 50th. There's no excitement quite like it. A novelty that never wears off. The sounds and sights that spell modern age in transportation. It's a wonderful feeling you get as you board your plane. No matter who you are, something happens to you inside and makes you feel, well, sort of sorry for those who are going to be left behind. A warm welcome for everyone from the pretty girl in the trim uniform, always on call to lend a hand. Cheerful, smiling service for every passenger on board. A pair of newlyweds, Edie and Henry, fresh from their wedding, honeymoon bound to California. Edie and Henry looked over every travel folder they could get their hands on, but it didn't take them long to decide that California was the place they wanted to go on their honeymoon. Small fry en route, in the special care of the senior hostess, to be delivered safe and sound in Los Angeles on a visit to Grandma and Grandpa. The new mode in honeymoon travel, but the same old way of saying.
Final call. Ambassador Flight 93 for Los Angeles. Now boarding at Concourse Gate number 8. All aboard Flight 93, please.
To me, that means I'm on my way home, to my family, my house, my work at the studio. It was good to be on board, following the other passengers, and now coming forward to my seat, about halfway down. Seemed like pleasant company. Now we're ready to go, so take it away.
Leveled off and heading west toward California and the Pacific. A little help from the hostess, and then ready to settle down in solid comfort. The younger fellow is Richard Carlson, Hollywood actor. The older man, a businessman from the East.
He was a big-time industrial executive. I recognized his name. When I told him my name, not a glimmer. Asked me what business I was in. When I said actor, he said, must be interesting work. My ego took quite a jolt, but I recovered quickly. A movie fan, bless her, nice-looking girl a few seats forward, kept staring at me. Newlyweds looked like to me.
I looked around, and there he was, Richard Carlson. Henry didn't think I ought to talk to him. All I wanted was his autograph, naturally. Neither of us had a pencil, but I can always depend on my Henry. He had a pen. It was certainly a wonderful start to our trip, meeting a movie star before we were hardly even off the ground. Everybody nice and friendly, like we all knew each other.
Cruising at 300 miles an hour, a steady course due west. And now, mealtime, an always welcome part of air travel. As part of the service, of course, a full meal. Soup, meat, salad, vegetables, dessert, coffee, milk, or tea. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Served hot from special galley equipment. There's nothing like relaxing high in the sky, whether it be the deep slumber of childhood, lulled to sleep by the drone of the motors, or the restful calm of old age in quiet contemplation. And almost before you know it, you're looking down at some of the world's finest scenery, like the Grand Canyon, for instance. No need for words to describe this sight.
The other side of the Rocky Mountains has always meant one thing to me: California. Oranges in your own backyard, palm trees in the streets, Hollywood, Beverly Hills, San Francisco. And now, in only a few more minutes, we're going to be there. All the things we'd read about and heard about. And it was all going to be ours, Henry's and mine, on this 2-week trip. And only a matter of hours from home to California. It was almost too good to be true. But it was true. There's our plane landing at the Los Angeles International Airport. I could feel the plane taxiing. I think that's what they call it, headed for the terminal. And so we were here at last, in California, land of my dreams. I could hardly wait for the plane to stop and let us off.
California, here we are. Just as bright and shiny as I left it. And am I glad to see it. This is what I call living. Goodbye, Mr. Big Business. Good luck. I was anxious to get along, but somehow I couldn't get that young honeymoon couple out of my mind. Their first look at California at ground level was really something to see. They were the nicest pair of honeymooners I'd come across in a long time. I decided on a little wedding present for them, to do what I could to make their visit a memorable one. I invited them to come along, and before they had a chance to turn me down, I hustled them on to meet someone I hoped was waiting for me. It was wonderful to be home, and more wonderful to catch sight of Mona up there near the gate. Mona, that's Mrs. Carlson. No movie director needed here. It all came natural. I guess Mona and I acted sort of like a pair of newlyweds. Mona liked Edie and Henry on sight and fell in with my idea of helping them enjoy their California holiday. This is where we live, in Beverly Hills. We like it fine. So did Edie and Henry. But they spent more time in the pool than in the house, which was okay with us, that is, with Mona and me. Seeing to it that they had lots of fun, well, that's what we were concerned with. It was a pleasant little chore, and I was grateful to Mona for pitching in and making things pleasant for our visitors. It was fun for us, too, just watching their happiness, the way they played and teased each other. A couple of kids.
Richard Carlson, Dick, didn't start his new pictures around town. Want to see the stars, Holmes? This man is a guide for tourists. Here's a busload touring Movie Land, the sights of Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Dick drove around to see the stars, Holmes. Imagine, taken on a tour of Movie Land by a movie actor himself. That tumble-down shack, but it's home to Cary Grant. Or is it Lana Turner? I get them mixed up. Another little place called home, Pickfair. Imagine having to mow all that lawn.
Only a few minutes drive and you're on the beach at Santa Monica. One of dozens of swimming and play beaches along the blue Pacific shoreline. Mile after mile of sand warmed by the sun. Beach beauties everywhere, and art lovers willing to look. This is paradise for thousands of sun worshipers, Californians by birth or adoption, and visitors in almost equal number from every state in the Union.
Then Dick drove us around to the different studios, and I found out, surprise, most of them are not really in Hollywood at all. Why? They all look pretty much alike on the outside. But what I wanted to know was, how about going inside? Dick explained it's pretty hard for visitors to get inside these days. But he did manage to fix it for us. And that's how we got to see how movies are made.
Acting as guide for Edie and Henry was a real pleasure. Although he didn't show it much, Henry got just as big a bang out of things as Edie. The Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard, for instance. They considered it one of the most interesting sights in Hollywood. In fact, their enthusiasm made me kind of interested in another close look myself. So we parked the car and walked over to the forecourt.
So these are the famous footprints I've heard so much about. Sonia Henney, Harold Lloyd. That really goes back before my time. But here's my boy, Jack Benny. And here's Betty Grable, Henry's girl, next to me, of course. You know, I could be a Hollywood star myself. For size, anyway.
The next morning, Edie and Henry started out on a tour south along the coast. Their first stop, picturesque Balboa, named, of course, after the Spanish explorer who discovered the Pacific Ocean. A few miles farther south on coast route, Laguna Beach, beach resort and Southern California artist colony. And then, 3 hours from Hollywood, the city of San Diego, important United States Naval Center.
Our next stop, and for the first time in my life, I was in a foreign country. The border town of Tijuana, Mexico. No trouble at all getting across the border. I mean things like passports and such. They were glad to have us. And we had to be there, which is putting it mildly. A few weeks and we were on our way down Tijuana's main street, ready to see Mexico and let Mexico see us. Food, Mexican food, out in the open. Hot, and I do mean hot, tamales, tortillas, tacos, enchiladas, and a few other tidbits we could hardly swallow, let alone pronounce. This is some documentary evidence for the natives back home. Senor Henry and his muchacha, Senora Edie, on their caballo in Old Mexico.
One evening at our house, Edie asked about other places to visit and things to see during other seasons of the year, wintertime, for instance. Well, that was all I needed. That was my hobby. So in less time than it takes to tell it, and before Mona could change the subject, I had the projection machine out and ready to roll. Trouble with color home movies is that you got to keep finding new victims to look at them. For the benefit of anyone who might be saying, what colossal conceit, the Hollywood credit system is very strict. When you do anything in filmmaking, you just have to take screen credit, even if you don't want it, I think. Anyway, what we're looking at now is Palm Springs, one of America's famous winter resorts, November to about April. Sunshine playground for picture people, for thousands of Californians every year, and a surprising number of people from the East, refugees from New York and Chicago, snow and cold, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Boston, sleet and bitter winds. This is the annual Circus Week parade. Frankly, I'm pretty proud of this footage. In color yet. It was a lot of fun, the parade itself, and shooting it, especially close shots here and there. We dissolved to the Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena. Annual event of world renown held on New Year's Day. Floats, bands, beautiful girls, stunning floral creations rolling down Colorado Boulevard to the cheers of thousands of people gathered from every part of the Union, watching this fabulous riot of moving color and design, a spectacle of such sights and sounds as can be enjoyed nowhere else on Earth. Back to summertime and my Catalina footage. I have a tendency to wax poetic when I think of Santa Catalina Island. It's a kind of a dream world from the time you step off the boat at Avalon Town, only 2 hours by boat from the mainland, to going home time. I happen to like birds. At Catalina's famous bird farm, I had plenty to shoot at. This is a big-beaked Demetrobus, as the ornithologist would say. Another colorful and big-beaked resident of the bird farm. Couldn't get much action out of this one either. On the other hand, meet my friends Penny Penguin and family out for a stroll, encouraged by a couple of small fry. Speedboating along the shores of Catalina, your face whipped by flying spray, on a day too full of delights to remember them all, on a gem of an island off the coast of Southern California. Now we fade in on some of California's old missions. Wonderful old buildings, churches really, established by the early Spanish padres and still in use today. Through them was the history of early California written, before George Washington and the Revolutionary War. Here we see the famous Mission San Juan Capistrano, known throughout the world as the mission of the swallows who return in the spring of every year, always on the same day from their winter exile. Peace, quiet, and beauty dwell here, this beautiful garden of many flowers, centuries removed from the hustle and bustle of the world we live in today. And now to another California vacation land, Lake Arrowhead, about an hour and a half from Los Angeles. Name your holiday pleasure, and it's yours at Arrowhead. Mine happens to be water sports. And here it is. Golf, of course, for the tournament player and the duffer. No, that's not me swinging like a champion. Wish it were. My game is strictly for the birds, in the low hundreds. Top prize money, perfect climate all year round, some of the most interesting courses in the country. These are elements that make California tournaments so attractive to the top pros. Put a camera in my hands, give me a roll of color film, and here's what I bring in. A fine photo of yachting fun in California waters. And now, a touch of dash, a soupçon of excitement, a fistful of thrills. If you're squeamish about spills, close your eyes quick. Because, wow, there he blows. Goodbye now. The Sport of Kings is practiced in Southern California. This happens to be the clubhouse of the Hollywood Park racetrack. But I was able to get better racing footage at Santa Anita, pounding down the stretch for home. Also, I reluctantly add the fade out of this Richard Carlson home movie production.
The morning after that swell movie show, Henry and I found ourselves being taken out to the airport. We were leaving Southern California. I don't know why I should have felt so weepy. It was only a trip. But this was different somehow. Everything had been so perfect.
Announcing TWA Flight 1 for San Francisco. Now boarding at Concourse Gate number 4. All aboard Flight 1, please.
We had made wonderful friends. We'd seen so many wonderful things. It was as though we sort of belonged here. The Carlsons, well, there's no use trying to tell how we felt about them. All I can say is that I wish every traveler as much friendship as we found up there in the sky, and then in sunny Southern California. And now we're taking off again, north to San Francisco. Goodbye, Richard and Mona Carlson, and thanks a million. It's really been wonderful. And maybe someday we'll be back again. Flying toward more good times in San Francisco. Below us, vacation spots we hope to visit someday. Monterey and Carmel, along the coast, for instance. The big trees, enormous stands of giant redwoods, which were mere saplings hundreds of years ago. And Yosemite, full of scenic wonders. Impressive Half Dome. Wonderful wild country for pack trips. And high, lacy waterfalls reflecting the sun, splashing down steep cliffs. We're told this is ski country, too. All winter sports, for that matter. Personally, I go for a nice warm fireplace at home. But for those who like the snow, and what goes with it, like ski chasing down mountains, well, here it is. San Francisco just a few minutes away now. Everyone says it's the New York of the West Coast. Although it's not as large as Los Angeles, San Francisco has the reputation of being much more cosmopolitan. There's the Golden Gate Bridge. And like all California cities on the coast, surf bathing only a few minutes from the heart of the city. About the first thing we did after landing was to take a boat trip around the bay. It's a lovely trip and a wonderful skyline view of the Bay City. As exciting a sight as we'd seen on the entire trip. We're passing under the Oakland Bay Bridge. I believe this is the second longest bridge in the world. Here's the ferry building at the end of famous Market Street. We'd heard about the cable cars, of course, and one of the first things we did was to get on board. Although, frankly, it looked a little shaky to me. It was quite a sight to see the conductor and the motorman turn the car around at the end of the line. I thought all that went out with the gay 90s. Quaint, that's the word for it. I think a one-way trip will be enough for me. Rising from the crest of Nob Hill, the famous Mark Hopkins Hotel. And this is the view from the top of the Mark, looking toward the Oakland Bay Bridge and cities beyond. Chinatown. San Francisco has the largest Chinese community outside of China, so it says in the guidebook. Very oriental. Very. Intriguing gift shops, full of lovely Chinese jewelry and other exquisite knickknacks. Henry got kind of worried, but I promised I'd go easy, and I did. Within reason, that is. Here's a really fabulous place. San Francisco's famous Fisherman's Wharf, where hundreds of fishing boats bring in tons of fish, caught not far offshore outside the Golden Gate. All kinds of shell and other fish, sold right then and there on the wharf. We'd already had our lunch in Chinatown, but how could anyone resist those tantalizing odors? Plenty of wharf restaurants, marvelous fish menus, and wonderful friendly service. Several places you pick out your own food, and they prepare it for you. Henry's not much of a seafood eater, strictly a hamburger man, but even Henry had to try some of this. Well, this food was all and more we'd heard. This wasn't eating for hunger. This was strictly for pleasure. And now it's really goodbye. Goodbye to California. No longer the land of our dreams, but now the land of wonderful memories. Goodbye from Henry and me, until we come back again someday. We hope.
And from California to you, Edie and Henry, a very pleasant goodbye until we meet again. For you, California means holiday time and the pursuit of unforgettable memories. And that's what it means to thousands who come here every year. Something for everyone. On the beaches, along mountain trails, at the resorts, in the cities, those looking for the vigorous life, and those in search of the quiet warmth of the all-embracing sun. This, then, is California, the Golden State. All things to all people. A great place to live. A wonderful place to visit. Truly a vacation wonderland.